Hey everyone, welcome back to Corporate Decoder, the place where we decode corporate filings so you don't have to. Today we're diving into Lion Copper and Gold's annual report, and let me tell you, this one is like panning for gold and mostly finding sand. So let's see if we can find any gold. This report gives us a look at the company's performance over the past year, digging deep into its finances, properties, and future plans. They're mainly focused on exploring copper projects in Nevada and Montana. Okay, first things first, this is a Form 10-K, which is basically an annual checkup for publicly traded companies. It tells us all sorts of things, from their financial health to potential risks, but be warned, it's also full of forward-looking statements, which the company has a note about right off the bat. These are basically guesstimates and they can't guarantee anything. They're even warning us that real results may differ materially from these forward-looking statements. So buckle up because we're going on a financial roller coaster. Now things get a little tricky here. See, they're using both US and Canadian reporting standards, which have similar goals but different approaches. It's like saying the same thing in slightly different languages. Lion Copper and Gold is an exploration stage issuer, which means they're digging around hoping to find something valuable, not actually selling it yet. This means they have mineral resources at their Yarrington copper project in Nevada, but no actual reserves as of the filing date. And just a quick note, they're considered a smaller reporting company and an emerging growth company, which gives them a little bit of leeway with certain regulations. Keep an eye on this, because once a company exceeds those statuses, some rules become more strict. Now let's get into the meat of the business. This company is all about finding and developing copper projects, mostly in Nevada and Montana. Keep in mind that these mineral properties are just what they've spent so far, not necessarily what they're worth. The Yarrington Copper Project in Nevada is the main show. It's considered their only material property. Let's talk a little bit about family. Lion Copper and Gold Corp has two subsidiaries, one in British Columbia, Canada, Falcon Copper Corp, and the other in Montana, USA, Blue Copper LLC, and it owns around 43% of Falcon Copper Corp. Falcon Copper is exploring properties in White Pine County, Nevada, through an option to joint venture with Kennecott Exploration Company. Falcon Copper also owns 48.8% interest in Blue Copper Royalties LLC. The reason that number is different is because Falcon Copper is a private company, meaning its shares are not available to trade for public, and it may have its own shares issued. Now for the numbers. As of the end of the last year, they have 179,567 tons of measured resources and 278,374 tons of indicated resources in Nevada. It sounds like a lot, but the total copper percentage is around 0.28%. They also have a bunch of inferred resources. Be warned, these numbers are just estimates and there's no guarantee they'll ever be mined profitably. They give an example of their open pit estimates at the Yarrington deposit, which has a cut-off grade of 0.038% copper for oxide mineralization and 0.126% for sulfide. If the cost of mining that copper is higher than the copper within the actual ground, then it would not be economical to do so. Okay, so how do they make sure their numbers are trustworthy? They have internal controls in place for drilling, sampling, and assaying, aiming for accuracy and consistency. The technical information has been looked over and approved by Todd Bonsall, who's a qualified person, meaning he knows his stuff. Alright, it wouldn't be a corporate filing without some disclaimers about possible negative outcomes, and this one has a lot of them. These are all things that could hurt their business. First and foremost, they might need more money. That's a classic risk for companies like this, especially since, again, they don't have any operating revenue to offset costs. Next up, they're relying on an option agreement with Nuton, a Rio Tinto venture. It's basically a deal where Nuton has the option to buy a big chunk of their Mason Valley projects, but there's no guarantee this will happen or that the project will actually find enough copper to be worthwhile. Lion Copper has a history of losses, and they anticipate that will continue until one or more of their projects starts producing copper. They might issue more shares to raise money, which could water down the value of existing shares. That's dilution, and it's not always a good thing for current investors. Exploration is risky. They might not find enough ore to make a mine worthwhile. Plus, some of their directors and officers might have conflicts of interest because they're involved with other mining companies. It's like juggling multiple balls. Things can get tricky. Oh, and here's a modern risk. They rely on computer systems, which are vulnerable to cyber attacks and data breaches. A successful attack could mess up their operations and leak sensitive information. Lastly, their stock price is likely to bounce around a lot, influenced by things beyond their control. So how are we keeping track of everything? Well, management says their disclosure controls and procedures are effective, meaning they're on top of reporting accurate information. Management also says their internal controls over financial reporting are solid. These are basically the safeguards to ensure their financial data is reliable. Cybersecurity risks for the company include financial loss of data, and business interruption. They maintain technology and non-technology based system controls to mitigate these risks. The company's board of directors are also overlooking the company's risks. They're checking on their cybersecurity program and reviewing it once a year. They're not aware of any previous cybersecurity threats. Okay, let's move on to what the top dogs are getting paid. In 2024, the total compensation for their CEO, Steven Dischler, was roughly $245,000. That includes a salary and the value of some stock options. The former CEO, Charles Travis Norgel, made around $260,000. These guys aren't exactly living large compared to CEOs of bigger companies, but it's still a decent chunk of change. Keep in mind, most of the value is tied to stock options, which means their success relies on improving the company's stock. Interestingly, Tony Alford, one of the directors, received a lot in stock options, a value of around $363,000. And of course, there are termination benefits, which basically say that if certain executives get canned after a change in control, they get a severance payment equal to a year's salary. And to make sure everything's above board, they have an insider trading policy in place. Basically, no funny business with buying or selling shares based on secret information. Finally, let's talk about the folks who keep the book straight. M. Pilley is their independent auditor, and they're getting paid around $229,000 Canadian for their services. Now that's a lot of information, but what does it all mean? Well, Lion Copper and Gold is really betting on the Yarrington Copper project, which, to be fair, has potential given that the water rights issue seems to be solved. Solving the water rights issues, that was one of the main hurdles. However, as with any exploration stage company, you're betting on their ability to raise funds, discover resources, and navigate a ton of risks. The financial state seems okay if they can maintain their revenue streams by finding more option agreements. That would take a lot of pressure from the share price, from the need to dilute outstanding shares. The dependence on a single agreement and the uncertainty that Nuton LLC might not execute their options represents a great area of weakness for the company, and therefore a cause for investor concern. If this agreement fails, the company will need to be more creative to find more ways of creating revenue that are non-dilutive. If you enjoyed this video, do subscribe, like and comment below. What do you think of Lion Copper and Gold? Let us know in the comment section and consider subscribing.